SD corruption, drone footage. It'll be fine. I've done it plenty of times, never had an issue. I bought these gunpla. It's going to go out of whack. I said whack, go out of whack. That's a technical term. I'm carpenter. I'm carpentry with metal carpentry. Ironmongery, blacksmith. I don't know. What are you? Well, you come along for the ride. Right, welcome. My name's Matt. This is going to be a standalone video of me making this unit. It's kind of like a bookcase / media unit. Interestingly, it's actually from a subscriber, so I thought I'd document it. And basically what's happened is he's contacted me, sent me some pictures of some units he likes the style of, him and his wife. He won't mind me saying this, but we've had quite a few changes along the way. Well, actually, no, we haven't had more than usual. It's part of the process when you come to someone bespoke, when they design and make it, they'll do multiple drawings and we'll go through different design ideas. But essentially, rather than it being a veneer front, which I don't like the idea of in this instance, I wanted it to be solid oak, because the thing he sent me to copy, which I'll put up on the screen, is character grade oak. I think it's a bit ugly, but it is solid oak. And we've got the detail of the holes, so that's easier done in solid, or better done in solid oak. So we're going to use some 32mm prime oak, which will be cut a little bit shorter and matched for the doors. So I'm comfortable I'll be able to get that to 27mm, very uniform, very flat, with the right amount off both sides, which will eliminate any shadowing that might already be in the wood. And basically that means I can then use a cabinet hinge system. They go up to 27mm, which gives me adjustment on the doors, which just, you know, if you do this sort of thing, you know, it makes it your life a lot easier. And in the future, the doors are going to be adjustable. Here we've got some rustic oak. That's going to be for the shelves. That's 42mm. We're going to get that to try and finish at about 38. Again, that's going to be cut quite short, so I'm quite confident I can do that. And obviously we've got to edge join all these boards. I'll probably just domino them as well, as gluing them and clamping them, just to get my 300 spin you round, depth on those, and to get whatever we've got for these doors. A little bit of an elephant in the room. If you are new, you won't know this, but if you're an existing customer, I'm not no memberships there. If you're existing, not customer, if you're an existing subscriber, you'll know that I haven't been filming. Although I have actually, but I haven't edited it. I've decided to stop doing the weekly videos. I wouldn't be true to myself if I carried on, because the reality is I set myself a goal in 1 year to achieve 1,000. I failed. Sometimes you just fail. I could just carry on. I did carry on for 2 weeks, if I'm honest. Heart wasn't really in it. I just thought, you know what? Try something new. Take the pressure off yourself a little bit as well, filming every day. So if you are new, maybe go check those videos out. It's a little bit of fun. It's a period in my life, really, that I've documented. It's basically picked up the camera after Christmas last year and just went, I'm going to film and start a YouTube channel from nowhere. Didn't even really tell many friends about it or customers. Obviously, I asked them for filming, but I didn't tell them what I was doing. And basically I'm quite chuffed with how far I got, but 1,000 would have meant I could have monetized. I probably could have then carried on with it. Yeah, it is what it is. So I thought I'd do a standalone video just again for a bit of fun, takes a bit of the pressure off me. The editing is going to be a lot less for me now, because I actually changed how I did it. I started editing on my GoPro. That was taking more, filming on my GoPro. The editing was taking more time. I don't have the setup for it. I've got a really old laptop, which was actually a hand-me-down. So it just it struggles. And I was basically in the office. I think one weekend I was in the office for nearly a whole day putting one of these videos together. And that's not fair on my family. And I don't want to do that either. So that's it, me being open, honest, up front. We're going to crack on with this. I'm just going to document every bit of it, including the fitting. Hopefully it'll be a good video. Why don't you come along for the ride? Yeah. they're all fittings and planed. What you would have seen me doing just at the end is laying them out on this bench and trying to work out the best way for the grain orientation for the doors to look a little bit more like. So if we look at these veneered ones that are just like a sort of crude tool storage, you want the cut lines to line through on the shut lines. You want the grain to line through. But in these aren't veneered. I mean, obviously I could have brought it all from one log and I could have resized it on a bigger bandsaw, or I could have had, there's lots you can do, but at the end of the day, you're working to a budget for a project. And if we go back to the original image, we can see they've clearly not considered that. I do want mine to be a little bit more considered. So what I've done in this instance for the smaller doors, these all need resizing. And what I've also done is they're a little bit thicker than what they should be, because I'm going to leave these now for a period of time. I don't know how long. And then when I come back to them, I'll re-thickness and plane them just in case there's been any movement. They'll be completely covered. I've got the fire going, I'm in a barn, there's lots of, and it's going to go to a customer's house. So until I'm fully glued and clamped and I put a coat of oil on them, I don't really want to have them at a finished size sitting around for now. So they're close, so I can see, what the grain's going to look like. This and these are actually out of one board. So I've managed to flip them, which obviously is then flipping my grain orientation. So my growth rings, I'll include some growth ring images up on the screen. You want to consider that so that any movement on the door is counteracted. And basically that obviously looks quite nice. Then this is out of another board, which I've sort of tonally matched for this. I've still got a little bit of play to resize and make some lines, join up a little bit nicer. These longer doors are a bit more of a pain because I've had to do each one out of its own plank, because by the time you try and resize it, you're not getting 4 out of one board. The board would have to be like 4 meters long, which I just haven't got, and can't actually get oak at that size at the moment. And then actually to do the whole door, you'd need it 3 times, so it'd have to be 6 meters, and we're just not getting that. So we've done it out of 3 boards. We've tried to match them as best we can, and it's tonally really we're looking. So if we're looking at this one, this is one that I've rejected. As nice as that looks tonally, just try and flick you over. As nice as that looks tonally, it's got all these spider rays in, which I actually really like, but we've got so much crown cutting on these boards, I don't want to include the spider rays. I mean, this wasn't for this would have been for one of those, but I suppose I could have got away with linking the crown into this crowning, and then it turned into a spider ray. But I had no more spider rays on all of those doors. They're all quite heavily what we sort of call cathedral. Just because of the way the timber's cut, really, and you can't always see that because they're painting the ends of the timber like in preservative. So once you take the end off, you can see it's been cut in a slightly different way. The grain orientation's different, but tonally that matched. And then I had another board that, as soon as you can see this one. Tonally it doesn't look too different. This is before I thickness planed it. The first thing I did, I threw it over the planer, and I was like, right, alarm bells. I could see the tonal difference straight away. That's got a lot more reddish in, reddish rather than brown. So I thought I can't really include that either. So that's what you're sort of balancing. And then what I could have done, I suppose, with say these 3 boards, I could have, because obviously it's a bit of a process. You're committed to cutting, and once you cut, you've got to make sure you don't then resize those too late on, because you're gonna not have that join looking good like I showed you over here with the cabinet. You're not going to have, this is going to go out of whack if you're not careful. I'll even show that. This is going to go out of it's going to go out of whack. I said whack, go out of whack. That's a technical term. So basically what I could have done was not cut these boards. I could have just done 3 boards and then glued them, clamped them, then recut. But you'll get a bit of tension, I think, in the boards. So when you recut, the board might spring a little bit where it's been tensioned with the clamps. As straight and as flat as you get these things, it is hand applied, and it is a natural product. So we've resized them first. Also, I'm going to include dominoes in here. I'm actually going to include 10 by 50 dominoes. I was going to use the big domino and put some 14s in, but I think it's too big because I want the dominoes to be quite long. So they're again giving it a bit of through strength as the door joins, rather than like a loose tongue or just an edge joint glue. I just think it'd be better I also at the same time, just purely because it's lovely to have the fire on, so I've just been throwing the shavings at the fire. At the same time, I thickness and planed all the stuff for the shelves. So when it comes to stuff like that for shelves, I'll include a picture up now of a unit I made last year, a pantry unit. I applied the same process. Rather than going over to the machine and creating a straight edge, I have got this jig that has been made up for a long time. I've been using it for multiple projects. Again, these shelves are only roughly thickness and plane, just so I can see what I'm working with. They are flattened all to the same measurement, but they need redoing. Thankfully, because they're going to finish up at 300, I can redo them all in one go once they're all glued up over on the thickness of planer, because it will do 310mm. But basically, rather than doing a straight line on the planer, I've got this jig that you can actually do angles with. You just basically parallel this sacrificial fence on this, well, it's not sacrificial, you've got this board here, you've got this fence that you parallel to the blade, you've got these cheap toggle clamps on, and basically you can either do angle jigs, just repeat straight cuts, and you get a really nice clean straight line because you're using the arm of the of this to go through. And then also on the other side of it, I've also got a mitered side, so I can flip it round in here. They're both equal measurements, and that does miter folds if ever want to do miter folds that way. Right, okay, what you've seen there then is me gluing, clamping, resizing, not in that order obviously, these shelves. I've got 2 there, 4 there, so 6 shelves for this unit. You'll notice that I did it on the panel saw, most of it. Quite often if I'm doing just shelves, they'll be painted anyway. These aren't though, so I'll go through that in a minute. But quite often they'll be painted. So I'll just resize them all to the same size on the panel saw, because it just means you can utilise your clamps a little bit better. Basically, if you do them all a uniform size, then you can put more, you can use a set of clamps for more than one set of shelves. But in this case, because I want the seam lines to be bang on, even though I'm not matching the grain, so if you look, I have considered it a little bit, but I really want these seams to be as good as they can be, because there's not going to be any paint or filler going on them. I just fettled them last minute on the plane. I mean, they all end up at different sizes within 1/2 mil or a mil. It means you can't use the same clamping pressure, so we've just done them individually in the end. But I still favour that method. I just think it's nice and neat. Then while I was letting it go off, I made a quick little jig, which basically will go on the end of the shelf once I resize it the final size. And I utilise actually having this Axminster guide bush set. It's a brass guide bush set. It goes very nicely into the Festool router, and you can just get your guide bushes a closer size to your cutter, which A, just helps with the maths when you're offsetting a guide bush, B, in this case, one of my slots is very close to the edge of the board, so I need to retain a little bit of board. And if that was a little bit smaller, that would break out, and then my jig would be spoiled. The reason I'm doing that is because on this job we've got metalwork holding the shelves up. Now I've sort of outsourced that to a friend of mine to make the metalwork, but I'm not sure he's going to be able to do it in time, so I might be doing it. But in that process, obviously I had to do him like a working drawing. So I've got the working drawing, and I thought, when you think about it, I'll show a picture. I'll put a picture of it up, and you can of the one that I'm copying. You can imagine that the bolts are going to interfere with the shelf that hold it up. There's quite a lot of working out to be done there, and they've all got to be uniform and exactly the same, because you want, when it's at 45 degrees, the braces, you want that to be holding the angle up at 90 degrees, so the shelf stays true and square, and that needs to be the same for all the increments. So I've done the working out, used CAD for that, it's brilliant. But then that also means I've got this bit of a sketch that shows me where the bolt holes are going to be and where they're going to interfere or possibly interfere with the oak for the shelves. So that's what that jig does basically. And what I'll also do is I'll include a picture now of basically a unit that I did last year for a pantry for a handmade kitchen I built, and that basically and a bathroom, I did it for a bathroom as well actually. That basically applies a similar process where you rebate out for the lugs of the shelf pins, if you like. It looks really neat, really nice. I really do like it. In this instance, you're never going to see it because it's going to be underneath a piece of angle. But when the customer moves the shelf and he wants to adjust things later on, if he, for whatever reason, because the shelves are adjustable, I don't want him just to see like where I've hacked out with a drill bit for these bolt holes. I'd rather it look nice and neat. Oh yeah, and the sanding. I haven't got a calibrating sander. That was noisy, wasn't it? I've only got a belt sander, so I haven't got a drum sander, calibrating sander. I've only got a belt sander. So what I like to do is I like to scrape off all your glue rather than wipe it off with a wet rag while it's drying, because when you introduce moisture into the oak, you can get a bit of water staining, and you can also smear the glue back into places that you might not get out with a sander, depending on how much of a sand it's having. I use the Dominoes. They're only 5x30s actually in there. That's just purely for alignment, just to get my seam nice and neat. I think for the sake of including those, there's no strength in including those. For the sake of including those, it just means your glue ups are a lot smoother. But you still do get the tiniest of like a feeler sort of gauge seam. So you scrape that off with a chisel, and obviously even the quality of the metal, the air quality, the moisture in the glue, it can react with the tannins in the oak, and you can get slight staining. So you're going to need to sand it out anyway and scrape it off, even when you're completely done. There's no two ways about it. So I use the belt sander for that with a 60 grit on oak, and that gets that to a really nice sort of like flat finish, but you've got the scratch pattern of your sanding paper. So then I'll switch over to either an 80 grit on the belt, or I'll go to an 80 grit on the Rotex, which is a 5-stroke sander. Then I'll go maybe up to a 120 with a 5-stroke. Then I'll switch over to a 3-stroke random orbital sander, which is the Festool ETS, and I'll go like 120, maybe 150. It depends what you're doing with your painting, oiling, and that. You've got to you can't polish it too much, because otherwise it won't accept the finish, if you know what I mean, with oils and stuff anyway. So yeah, I just thought I'd explain the sanding process really. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get those done, and then I'll basically jump on getting the cabinets done, I suppose. Yeah. Right, and they're all done. They are nice and neatly laid out in a line. We're about 3.7 meters, I believe. That middle one slightly lower, and that's for the TV. In fact, I probably should put that sign in the middle. It's the sort of thing you've got to think about for social media. I won't bother. But yeah, basically, we've got oak veneered MDF boards. We've got 3 dominoes in each joint, 5 pocket hole screws, and we haven't got any glue in any of this because I might take it apart. We've got a loose backing which will get screwed in afterwards, drops into the rebate, and that's purely because I want it to be loose so that I can take it on the job, and I've got to measure out where there's some sockets are, and it's just a bit easier then to take the backing out and cut and fit on the job. I've got to consider a plinth detail as well, because the reality is in this instance I'm going on carpet. I know it's going to move a lot. I don't just want to put it on legs. I'm going to keep it quite low. I'm going to keep it just above the skirting board so it sneaks in there quite nice and neat with that, so it looks like it's fitted but it's not fitted. Which brings me on to the next thing. When I do the plinth, we're going to do it in 3 sections, and I'm actually going to put 2 side returns on. Well, I'm not going to put them on, I'm actually going to put them underneath, so that if they ever want to move and take it and fit it somewhere else, it's got a side piece, which is why I've also done these actual sides. They're all no screws or fixings or anything in them. The only thing is I've got to think about how I fix them together. I don't really want to probably just do some nice, I don't really know actually, but basically I am at some point going to have to fix them together, so we're going to slightly spoil the end panels with screws, but they might, you know, if they want to move them later, I want them to just be comfortable that when they move them later they'll at least be decorated on the ends. That brings me on to the tops as well. I'm going to do the tops now. We're going to mitre fold those out of Finsa Hydrofugo MDF spray and black, and I'll take you through the mitre fold when I do it if you don't know what that is. But basically we have a nice decorative edge all the way around on these, again in case they want to move it, and you might, you know, at some point look end on at that cabinet. And what I've done is I've got some offcuts of solid oak which I'm going to thickness and plane down to. I'm going to do 4. I'm going to cut them to height so that they finish at, oh sorry bad film, so they finish at that height. We're going to do 4 at 2mm, 4 at 3mm, 4 at 4mm, and I'm going to use those as little shims just to make up the margins in between the walls. It's not going to go fully scribed to the wall, but just as a bit of play, because I really want these worktops to overhang about, probably I'm going to do them all on average about 3mm on the front and on the sides. But I thought about it afterwards. I thought I can't do the middle one because it's going to be butt up to a unit, and I didn't really want to horn it, because if they ever want to move it then it's going to have like a horning cut on it, like a windowsill. So I'm just going to pack it off a little bit. Yeah, I don't really know how important these details are, but if I can do that, and I can turn around to the customer and go, look, if you ever want to move, yeah, it's a standalone piece as such. Yeah, so anyone else that was paying attention when I did the construction, you'll know that what I do is I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and those 6 uprights for the 2 end cabinets, I cut all those exactly the same, even though the middle one is actually shorter. It's 19mm shorter on the top, 19mm shorter on the bottom, and that just means that then what I can do is I can edge band them all the same. I can then do my LR32 holes with the Festool, you know, plunge route. I can do all those the same, so all my holes are in exactly the right place. And then over on the panel saw, I make sure that was my last cut, and I leave it set up. So then all I've got to do is just take the 2 mid ones and put a 19mm spacer offcut of veneer board in against the flag stop, recut, then turn it over and put another 19mm spacer, so that is 38mm, and recut. So both those two have basically had 19mm off top and bottom, which doesn't affect the holes. It actually means that you can't make a mistake then with the holes. Obviously you can make a mistake when you assemble by getting the dominoes in too early, like the you know, the alignment holes, you could put those in too early and then you've got to retrim. But you can't make a mistake ultimately, because when you assemble it you'll go, oh, I haven't recut these, you just have to recut them. Now Yeah, that is always the big worry when you're doing these LR32 holes. It's a lot of holes, so if you get them wrong, it can be frustrating. So I like to do it that way. It's just a foolproof way of doing it. Apologies if that didn't translate very well, but I'm just trying to cover quite a lot in one video. Right, I'm going to do the miter folds now. So what I'll do is I'll pick you up when I've got them all cut, laid out. I'm not going to do, I have got other videos, I might put some links up to how I've done miter folds before. I've got to do these slightly different because I haven't got any tape with me today, annoyingly. But there are other ways, but it is a different way of doing it. It's actually probably a better way. Well, you can decide. Drop me a comment. Right, cool. Speak to you in a bit. Right, the countertops are done. I did include a little snippet, I think, of me using the jig and the panel saw for cutting these long thin miters. If you look down there, I've got one. I always do one spare as well, just in case. But if you look down there, you can see how clean that cut is. No burning, no, so straight. A small cut like that, you're just not achieving that with a tracksaw. Even with the, you're just not. So basically, although I did use the tracksaw for the bigger pieces, so I'll just show you one. I'll show you one from the underneath here. So basically, this will be the top, if you like, and you can see what I've done is I've put a miter fold all the way around and on the corners, and then I'll knock that edge back with a router, give it a quick sand, put a bit of filler in there, and then it will get sprayed black, basically, well, primer then black. I have done these, I'll try and include a video with oak veneer, and with oak veneer you've got to be a lot more, or any veneer, you've got to be a lot more accurate with your miter folds because you can't really go fill them, they've got to be bob on. And I normally do it in such a way that I am putting tape, so what I'd do is I'd tape on the back of there, then I'd stick this down exactly in line, tape it, same with this, stick it down exactly in line, tape it, and then I'd fold them up, hence the term miter fold. And then I'd line it, tweak it, get it right, then I'd use tape around here as well, and I'd use series of tape over there to hold it all in, so on and so forth. That is more than strong enough, believe it or not. I've never had a problem, and it's probably the best way to do it. Only problem is I didn't have any tape. I went to the cupboard and I ain't got no tape, so you need quite a lot. So I thought I'd have to domino these. I wouldn't be dominoing them because I have tried it before if it was veneer, because you've only got to get a tiny bit out with the domino and it will hold the thing off. With this, it won't matter. And it actually does make for a stronger joint. So I'm using the 4mm dominoes. I simply lay them down as if I was going to do the miter fold. And I basically mark over each one. I'll get the right amount of dominoes on there. It's just simply a case of doing all the dominoes with a Festool and all the holes, and then gluing it all, throwing it all in there, and then getting the world's ugliest sort of clamp variation going on, which is it's hardly an Instagram post, is it, that the amount of clamps I've got on that, but it works, it does the job. And when I was cutting the 22mm moisture resistant MDF, I actually ran a little bit short, so I had to use some older stuff I got, which is some pre-primed Spanilux. That's not going to matter because it's only for a couple of edges. It's because it's pre-primed, it's actually a pretty decent product. And also these are just shelves, so this is going to be the 4 shelves for the 2 either side cabinets, and then the 2 shelves for the middle cabinet. It's just simply a case of utilising when you've got the sheet materials out to make sure you don't cut too much off of one sheet and have not enough wastage to do an important part, if you like. What you could do with these, the only reason I'm miter folding them is because what I don't want to do, because what you could do is you could actually double up the MDF if you like. So I double up the MDF, try and show you over here, fool. Yeah, you could double up the MDF, and that's actually near enough the depth I want. And then you could either edge band that, glue and clamp them together, edge band it and spray it, or you could buff that out and sand it and spray it. I'd always be worried that the seam would open up, if I'm honest. I think when you edge band it, I don't think there's any chance of the seam opening up. The tape's quite thick. I don't think it will show through the tape if there is any movement. But I kind of feel like if in anything in like constructing carpentry, should we say, or joinery, if you can put your seam on the edge or on the corner, you're sort of winning really, because your eye will expect to see a seam line on an edge or a corner. Any movement, that's where you want it, an internal or an external scribe basically. So that's why I do the mitre folds. Also, it is bloody strong as well, and it keeps the weight down, which is, you know, it is important, it is a factor. And then what I'll do, another reason I do the mitre folds, what I'll do is when I come to assemble and put it on the job, I'll use a piece of oak veneer. I'll drop that in the back, screw it here, and then you'll see, because this will get sprayed black, and then you'll just see a little margin of that oak veneer when you open the cabinets, which will look quite nice. You could do it, I could just back it up with a bit of board and spray it in black and decorate the seam out, but it looks just as good in the oak veneer. And you can utilise placing a piece in like that, because you can do is you can offset it, the thickness of any LED light rope or light trim you want to put in there, and you can have like a floating light. So I've done that numerous times. In my opinion, it's that perfect balance of it works really, really well, it's cost effective on time and on materials, so I don't see a downside to it. Right, so what we've got to do now, obviously we've got to glue that one up, let that one go off, yeah, and then we'll jump on the next stage. Right, now everything is now in the paint room apart from a couple of countertops. Just thought I'd take a minute to show you exactly what I do with those. So once I've unclamped them, I sand them all back completely flat. That's just because what you don't want is if any of these mitre folds sort of overspill, you don't want to be, then when you put in your filler, filling to the highest point, you kind of want to sand it back flat to start with. So you sort of sand before you fill. Then I'll go around it with the router, and I'll purposely leave the router set up to the exact depth, like with the chamfer, and leave that on the bench. Put some 2-part filler in it, and I'll fill all the seams, whether they need it or not. Like hardly any of this needed filling, but I still put the filler in there just in case, because the glue occupies most of it. Then when that's gone off, you sand it. Well, when it's gone off, rather than sanding, you just scrape off the high spots of the filler, and you'll do that along the face as well. Then you can 120 sand it with 5-stroke sander. And then what I do is I run the router all the way back round again, and it's not taking any more off, it's just, well, I'll show you. Then I'll put it on a bench over here by the door, and you can see what's left on the seams. That there's a bit of a gap there, so you see where the filler's got in here. Here, yeah, it's next to nothing. It's just a hairline. Again, hairline here. Yeah, in fact, you can't even, the filler's completely gone here, so that was a really good job on that seam. Yeah, and basically that's really where I'm getting at with floating shelves and stuff. What I was trying to say was, if I'd have doubled up some boards, you'd have that seam always in the middle, and there is a small possibility that over time you might get a hairline like opening up, but you won't see that if it's on the edge. So yeah, I put it by the door, because then I've got a compressor set up here permanently above the door, which powers the Graco, do you know what it's called? Gun. So basically I use the compressed air from that to blow off any dust that the Festool Hoover hasn't picked up, and then I run them up the stairs into the paint room, which is a bit of a mess because I've got a couple of little jobs in here as well. But this hatch, this shuts down. This door up here, there's like a sliding door that shuts off here, so I'm contained in this area with my paints and stuff and my compressor hose, but the actual compressor is outside. And then I spray everything in here, and then I open the door and start putting them in the racks. So typically I'll try and do 1 or 2 things. It depends how big they are. If I'm doing the drawer fronts, I've got my little table that revolves around. I'll probably bring all the drawer fronts in, spray them in one go, and then carry them all out. Just so I haven't got to keep opening and shutting the door. But the bigger bits, I'll just spray one, and then I'll pass it back through onto the rack, let it dry. I've got air in, coming in, air out, going out. So we've got a bit of ventilation now. Keep the hoover up there all the time as well, just so I can, before I load it out for a job, like, so up there at the moment I've got 3 little jobs in there that are going to get primed tomorrow. So what I'll do is first thing in the morning I'll just hoover it all, because obviously I've gone up and down out of the workshop. I keep this door shut all the time, obviously when I'm spraying and when I'm working, so no dust ever travels up there, but just walking up and down, bit of dust on you and stuff. I just give it a hoover before I start the job, hoover my panels again. Really, with spraying, the cleaner you can keep it, the better the finish you can get, and airflow to get it dry. I've got a heater up there as well, which is on a timer for the winter. Airflow, heat, it's just a constant combination of things just to get the best finish you can get, really. And the paints, so I use a company called Renner. Renner paints. I use in fact I'll put it on the screen because I can't remember the names of it, but I use a top coat from them with a catalyst hardener, and it's bomb proof. Right, that's it. little bit of spray footage for you there. Although actually I'm in the process of spraying because you have to do it over multiple days. So yeah, the primer I can get done in one day, but the actual top coat, that is normally a day per side, and I'm spraying other things at the same time as well. Yeah, in summary, you've just seen the spray footage, but I'm still spraying. I've still got stuff to do, so process that in your mind. Basically, what I've just done is I've just got the doors out from under the protection. I'll sort of keep them under there just to keep them as stable as possible, and they are oversized. They all need cutting back down, top and bottom, left and right, all the way around really, apart from the door margins. They'll have a minimal trim because I want this detail to line through with the grain match. What I'm doing now, because obviously I've sort of been through this, these aren't all out of one board, one tree if you like, so I'm just trying to piece together, and it's too big to lay out on a bench. What I would like to have done is I suppose I could lay it out on the floor actually, couldn't I? In fact I will do that, yeah. So I've just picked you up for no reason, but I'm not going to show you doing that. Yeah, basically lay them all out on the floor in this case, and just see what the pattern looks like from door to door. I always knew, and the thing I was matching was never ever going to allow me to get the board joins to line through, just because I'm matching something that they haven't bothered considering the board joins. Also, the idea is you don't see the board joins, so I want them to all be uniform. I'm not going to start staggering them, but I know that from cupboard to cupboard they're going to be off a little bit. So I'm just trying to meet in the middle, just make it look good, so that when it's all in as a bank of units, it looks really well considered. So actually, yeah, laying it out on the floor is obviously the best bet. I don't know why I didn't think of that. That's why it's handy to pick you up. Yeah, so I'm going to do that now. I'm going to lay them out. But you can already see this is going to be, I believe this is the right hand side. Yeah, because I started 1, 2, 3, 4. I've numbered them wrong, but that's the right hand side of the left hand unit, and that's the middle unit. So that door is going to go there, and that door next to it, that little one, is going to go there. So I can already see, you know, I don't need sanding, but I can already see that it's going to look quite nice if I can tonally, if I can lock it. Yeah, you could almost argue that was out of the same board. I know it wasn't out of the same batch, but it definitely wasn't out of the same board. So yeah, some bits obviously aren't going to look quite so good, but even here we've got a bit of radial cutting going on. That will line through to there. That will look nice. Yeah. So yeah, what I'll do is I'll lay all those out, have a little look. Then I need to cut them to the exact size they're going to be. Then I'll route the edges and get some oil on them so the oil's going off. Yeah, just want to get as much oil. Basically, now I've unwrapped them, I need to sort of cut them and treat them all in one go. You don't want bare wood sitting around for too long, because that's when it starts to distort. And obviously I need to oil both sides at the same time, more or less. If I was just doing solid work, I'd take all this up to the paint room, but because I'm spraying up there, because it's a bit more stable up there, I've got the heat and stuff up there and the extract and stuff, so I will have to just lay them on the bench and just leave them here, but it'll be fine. I've done it plenty of times, never had an issue. Right, what I'll do is I'll do a little shot of me laying them all out. Yeah. Drone footage. Yeah, basically, I'm quite happy with it. It's always hard to be 100% happy when you're making stuff. But yeah, I'm happy with this sort of element here, and I'm happy with how it goes up to this bit. Interestingly, that is actually pretty much the way around that I decided on having it when I started fixing and playing the boards. Obviously it is quite difficult to fully tell, because as you start uncovering the boards by fitting and playing them, you start seeing different, you know, variations. Cause it's a free product, isn't it? You're going through it at different stages, you're seeing different colour tones and variations. I actually picked up a board this morning for something else, and I turned it over and it's a completely different colour on the other side. It is just part of oak, and it's not being book matched. It's just I want it to look considered, like I just said. So the only downside I've just realised is my widths are quite a lot out, which is on purpose. I've made, especially these long doors, I've made them a fair amount longer so I can recut Yeah, like, and the reality is that I've now probably got to lift these boards over, overlap them, just so I'm, again, make sure that I'm not doing any, not making any sort of stupid decisions, because I've got an opportunity. Obviously, I haven't got a lot I can do, but I can turn those doors completely round. I can turn these round and add them, and have them over there, or turn them round and leave them there. And I can do obviously the exact same to that. So I have got a bit of room to play with, but at the moment that seems to look good. I think I'm quite happy with that. Yeah. Yeah, and then what I've got to do is I think I'm going to get the tracksaw out, and I think what I'm going to do is on these, you can see that door joint isn't very good because it's where I've just glued the boards together and they probably weren't particularly square cut. I've got to, because I've concentrated on getting a nice straight edge when I've joined them, the edges on the square cuts that were square to before I replaned them, you know, might be a little bit out. If that makes sense. I don't know if that really makes sense, but basically what I didn't want to do was thickness and plane those boards in one long length and then cut them all afterwards, because when you cut them afterwards you can get like a bit of spring or tension in the boards, the longer the board you've got. If I've got those boards, say that's about 1.5 metres, 1.6 metres, if I'd have thickness and planed those all at in one go, A, they'd ultimately probably end up being a bit thinner, so less stable, and B, when I cut down the middle, you'd get a little bit of tension relief because each board is different and being clamped and forced in its own way. I'm not really one for putting spring joints when I plane the timber, but you do obviously manipulate a little bit when you clamp it, just the tiniest bit, you know, like a sort of hairline crack. Yeah, so yeah, that's where I'm at now. I'm now going to basically get the tracksaw, cut a nice straight line on each door edge, and then that'll be my reference for square, and then I'll work out like a nice straight line down here, and then I'll cut all that over on the panel saw, and I'll basically be using each door edge as a reference for utilising the panel saw to cut them square and cut them into panel sizes. Basically, what I don't want to do is just start throwing them on there now. Although every top and bottom is very straight, they might not be 100% true in terms of the door edge line going through. Probably not the best way of explaining it, but it's a bit of an awkward one. So I'm going to, yeah, I'm just going to process that now. And then obviously I've got to jump on with the metalwork, and I think I'll process that and just get them oiled. I think that'll be my focus, because once you cut them, you really want to then lay them out, oil them, make sure they sort of stay stable really. I'll probably oil the shelves as well, and then I've got they have something else on it. Yeah, I've got, and I'll probably leave all the veneer work. Probably won't oil that yet. I'll probably oil that another day, basically, because that will only need 2 coats, maybe 3. I really want to get 4 or 5 on this, so I've got a bit of a head start if I oil it now. Right then. that's them oiled then. They look so much nicer when they're oiled, don't they? They just look so warm, so rich. Yeah. I think actually tonally and the grain and whatnot, I think it looks pretty good. Nothing too offensive there. Yeah, looking forward to it now. Yeah, so that's going to get lots of coats of oil. You'll see at the very end, same thing in front of the door. I'll sand by hand. I've got I use the finish sander, the ETS Festool. I've also got another finish sander which is supposed to be fine, like a palm. It just seems like anything you do, you just get scratch marks. So I just finish by hand, and then ding, and then blow it out the door. But they look good, yeah. And here's one for you. Black hands. Obviously, I'm painting these units black, spraying them. Anyone that's got the Graco Finish Pro HVLP 9.5 Turbo Force Edge Control 2 plus gun, I don't know what it's called, I'll put the name on the screen, something like that. If you've got that, when you flick it over to spot, which is really brilliant for blowing in the edges of doors and things, do you ever flick it over to spot and it just, maybe I've got the pressure on, I don't know, but sometimes all the paint just comes out the sides, which is what's happened. It happens every now and then, it just explodes on me. So I've got to do a bit of research on that. I'm guessing I've probably got I do turn it down, but I'm guessing you've got to turn it right down. I've got to do some, I don't know. Obviously what I'm doing is restricting the paint coming out the needle, and it just blows out the part. I mean, it literally, that was horrific. Right, anyway. Metalwork, let's go. SD corruption. Yeah, I had an SD card corrupt, so I'm not sure how much of the footage you've actually seen, but that is what you've just seen is all I've got. That's all the metalwork complete. I was hoping someone was going to do it for me, but I've had to do it myself. Actually, because I had the drawing, it was quite easy. My biggest concern was the drilling. I'm just going to go through this. Was A, accuracy, and B, how long the drill bit was going to last. And they kind of work, they sort of coincide, because once the drill bit's blunt, it will wander. I bought these Gunpla HSS bits, they're cobalt, and basically I'm still on the first one, so I mean, I'm not going to count how many, I will count how many of those are. Actually, I'm not going to count, on camera, but I'll put it up on the screen because I'll count off camera, because that's how nice I am to you. And I'm just experimenting with some of the finishes as well. So on the left, we've got like a milled sort of oiled natural finish after I've cleaned it, and on the right that's had one quick coat of black, a very tight spray of black. I'm sort of it is on the furniture I'm matching. It's kind of stated as being natural finish, but it looks ever so bluey. I know it will probably darken, but yeah, I'm going to wrap those up tonight. I'm going to do a little bit of research on it, because obviously I don't want the moisture to get to them. I've cleaned them well. I was hoping to get them coated today, but I'd rather leave it for another day and just do a bit of research on it tonight, because it's not my everyday stuff. I've got a few people I can ring as well. So what I have been doing, anyone does this sort of thing, the joys of having a small workshop, I'm oiling. So I can't oil in the paint room because I'm spraying, so I'm sort of at capacity. Just with these, I've got a couple of little jobs on, but just really with this main unit, and I've got a few drawers and stuff over there that I'm oiling, so I like to try and get them all done at the same time. So I've just given everything a coat of oil. I'm just going to take off all the excess off these shelves. Yeah, and leave it overnight really. You know, that's the way you got to do it when you've got a small workshop. And what I did do is I drilled an extra hole in the middle of those brackets. That wasn't on the plan, because although I thought ahead and I did these little notches to go around the bolts. So if we hold one up now, it's a bit wet, so I'll be careful. If we hold one up now, and basically it goes like that, doesn't it? It will go like that. So as you can see, it just covers. That will go to the back, sorry, yeah. And the bolts will fit in those rebates quite nicely. But my biggest concern was it being able to be knocked upwards. So I've just put a little hole in the bottom so I can fix the screw upwards. I've just actually painted the end, I was spraying. I sprayed some of the screws black as well. Just in case I can't, that's good filming, just in case I can't get any black screws on the day that I'm fitting it. Oh, that's what I was going to say. And the way I did it actually worked out quite well. I made a couple of little jigs up, which you've probably seen. I don't know how much footage I've got, but basically I made these up as like little jigs that go in independent, and I'll put stops in. This is set up for another one, but basically I'll put stops in, so I'd bang it into there and there'd be a stop here and a stop here. Then I could drill, and then I could take it out and bang all the swarf out, because you can't always get the swarf out because the drill bit's spinning, and then you've got to stop the drill and clean all that out. Yeah, I mean, actually, it's not much of a job for me to do something like that, because it's kind of like, you know, it's basically like doing carpentry but with metal, isn't it? Yeah, basically doing carpentry with metal. Is there a word for that? Yeah. Don't know. Got myself thinking now. Right. Anyway, I'm carpentry with metal carpentry. Oh, I'm hungry. Blacksmith. Don't know. What are you? Metal worker, I suppose. Why haven't you got a name? Weird. Right. Cool. Right. And I didn't actually film me doing the handles or film me putting the finish on these. That's I showed this already, that's like a black paint solvent based spray. I was going to do all of them black, but really there's no need. I've just put raw linseed oil on. The difference is so minimal, and then at least I know that it's not had a finish, rather than me, because I did say in the quote it was going to have the same as what I'm emulating is, which is a raw linseed oil. But as I did it, I was like, it just looks a bit light. Thought that with the black I've used, I don't know, I was a bit worried, but actually it kind of reflects the black when you put it back on top of it. I put it on the top earlier and it kind of reflects it quite well. The difference is minimal. These are the things that you just go through in your mind about a million times. Everything else is drying, all ready to go. So that'll get loaded onto the van in the morning basically. I've done these holes, so I've done all my hinge holes, which are 35mm cabinet hinge holes, plums, and then I've used the same Forstner bit, and the bit's running out unfortunately, so I've had a few burn marks, but I've done the same Forstner bit on all of them. Then I've chamfered it over a little bit and just rebaited the back, so with a router, so when you put your finger in there, you're not having to reach all the way through the door. Yeah, they're the little things that when you've got, I say you've got the afternoon free, there's a couple of, the workshop is an absolute bomb because I've got loads of little bits and bobs on. But yeah, they're the sort of things really that you're best off just taking the time, sitting down doing, like, you know, when you're doing the holes, just thinking, oh yeah, that'll make it a little bit better. Just take your time. I've cut all like packing bits. I've run these little legs down. I make a little jig and I put that in the miter saw. They're actually the Hafley legs, but they work really, really well. You can run them to basically whatever size you want. Obviously, I know you're not going to reach underneath the cabinet to do the ones at the back, but they're only drop-in cabinets, so I can just like lean them forwards, wind them and whatnot. And they're getting fixed to the wall at the back, and they're resting on the batten, so on the skirting board, so there'll be no issues there. Yeah, that's it really. Load up in the morning and tidy up as well. Oof. Right, install. Right, it's day of the install. Raining. This is how I have the van, you see. So what we've got in here, we've got our tool sustainers in here, our toolboxes in here, and then unfortunately at some point you've got to bring boxes with bits and bobs that you just grab out the workshop last minute. I have like a sealants bag, which I probably won't even need on this job. A little bit of the oil in the rag left over, the hinges, they're all in a box, but essentially, apart from these little bits and bobs, which to be honest with you, I could fit in here, which is normally where the table saw, miter saw and stuff go, but I've just thrown some bits in there, and the extractor. I could fit those in there, but I just threw it in the workshop sort of late last night, get it in. Yeah, it works quite well, because obviously if this job got cancelled, which if you watch another video you'll know there was a bit of an hour on this one, I could turn up at someone else's house with that on the van and I could carry on working. So yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to walk through the house and whatnot. I'm just going to whack you in the room one time lapse and then just take it from there really. That's it. looks nice, doesn't it? Yeah, so hopefully the camera's picking out the colour tone there, because the reality is I'm having a few issues with this GoPro on colour. But basically you can see I've got your grain match going through. I think it looks nice. Nice warm tones, something completely different. Bit frustrating, I haven't quite got a finish because we're waiting for the trunking's going to get painted to go in there to match. The homeowner's doing that. A couple of things that probably didn't come out on the footage. I've put these like little brush plates in just over the cutouts where I've had to keep sockets. So if you look in there, that's the aerial. You can see that. Yeah, it's just something I've done before. Haven't done it for a while, to be fair. In that cupboard I've got one at the back, just so you don't see the hole. What I've done before is I've made a jig where you router to router that out and put a false socket on, but the problem there being that you then can't, when you take that off, it's almost not big enough to remove the socket behind if you ever have a problem with the socket. And if you, anyone that knows anything about electrics, if an electrician comes around to test all this, ideally he needs to be able to get at every socket, even though it's technically not a fitted unit, which is another thing I like about it. I haven't had to scribe any of them into the wall. I mean, it still fits nice and tight against the wall. You can see that's slightly out of square. If that wasn't black or whatnot, or if it was a white unit, I'd have to scribe all that in if it was a fitted unit. I like this little detail. I think this has turned out really, really well. The little holes and whatnot, that's worked out absolutely bob on as well for level. Yeah, I'm really quite keen on that. I like the holes for handles. I've done that a few times. I like the fact it's solid oak, and we've got the veneer on the side. That again, I've totally managed to pick something out of the stock I've got to match. Yeah, I'm just very happy with it in all really, which is good. On to the next job. Yeah, this is the sad bit. This is the bit where I've got to leave it. It's not mine anymore. It's someone else's. They own it. But yeah, I've had a bit of fun doing it. And what I'll do when it comes to these little things that I've put on here, sorry, I just remembered, these I'm going to put on the screen now what I've actually used for those. In the past I've managed to buy some that have actually, see, I do a line through. I've managed to buy some in the past that have basically been the right size. They've been oversized from a socket module. But I couldn't find anyone who went to come do this, so I come up with that idea. That's actually just like a door seal that I've cut up and drilled some holes in for the screws. But it's alright because it's inside the cupboard, but some of the holes are already in there because when I've cut it out the section it already had holes in for fixing, so I haven't quite been able to get the holes where I want them. And at the end of the day, it's a bit of metal I've angle grinded up and sprayed black and put in there. It's sort of in segments rather than a fully finished unit in a factory, which would look a lot nicer. But it is inside a cupboard. It looks a lot better than just having a hole inside your cupboard, which I know some people are doing. So if anybody knows where I can get oversized ones of those, and I have bought them before, but I just couldn't find them, drop me a comment, put it on the screen. Hope you've enjoyed it. Something a little bit different, like a start to finish. Also it's freed me up to focus on other jobs that I haven't been able to film, which I've sort of enjoyed. It's made my headspace a little bit better because it's quite intense filming every day, so I'm sure you can imagine. Yeah, onwards and upwards. Oh, and the spray, that's turned out lovely, hasn't it? That has turned out absolutely bob on. So I'm happy that I decided to take that back and redo that, because that's about as good as you're going to get on a finish. Definitely some of the best spray work I've done actually. So big shout out, thank you to Renner, thank you to Tom, my rep, for helping me out with that. He's really got me back on track. Yeah, and these are the things really. I daren't tell you how much it costs because you've seen how long it's taken me to make it. I probably haven't done particularly well out of it. But these are the things that you just go, I want it to be right in the end. I want it to look different. I want it to look like a statement piece, and you're just happy with it. As you can see, I don't want to go because I like it. Right, I'm actually going to re-record the outro, which I don't often do, but anyone that follows me knows that I do struggle sometimes to get my words out anyway, but especially when I'm at the customer's house in front of the customer. Customer in this instance was actually a subscriber. Even if he wasn't, I'm not going to say anything now that I wouldn't say to their face. The reality is that job changed during the design process multiple times, and that's something that I struggle with. And I don't know why, because I'm quite a reactive person. I'm quite good at reacting. Like, for example, tomorrow I'm turning up at a gentleman's house to fix a load of rotten woodwork on his doors and windows. I've not really looked too much at it. I'll turn up with a pile of wood, all my tools, and I'll just crack on with it, and I'll probably smash it out in a day. And I seem to be quite good at that sort of thing. So you'd think me responding to changes during the design process would be the same, but there's something about responding to the design process changes that disengages me. And then I take my eye off the ball. So I made quite a large cock up on that job. On the left-hand cabinet, the socket was landed in the middle divide. You may have noticed it when I opened the cupboard. I can't remember if I did or not. On the original cupboard, that was in the middle of the divide. That wasn't in the divide. That was in the middle of the opening, in between the two divides. But then we changed the size of the cupboards. And although I had the socket written down, it's my fault, and the customer was fine with it. They're the sort of things that knock you for six on certain days. And there was a couple of other little bits and bobs. Overall, I'm really happy with it. I think it looks amazing. And I was really looking forward to doing it. But there's a process there. As part of the process, it disengages me and I stop looking forward to it. And then, with anything like that, you then finish it and you go, wow, yeah, I made that. It's customer's idea, don't get me wrong. I put my take on it because I have to, because I'm drawing it. So it had a bit of my creative input, but you know, the whole ethos, the whole plan of it was based on something the customer had seen and liked. And all of a sudden you feel very proud, but then you're only there for another 5 minutes. Couple of shots on your phone, bit of waffle, and you're gone, you're out the door, you won't see it again. It was I made, and I enjoyed that, and I find that quite frustrating and hard to deal with at times. However, it's part of the job. On to the next one. Give me a thumbs up if you've liked what you've seen. If you haven't, just keep it to yourself. Certainly don't drop me a comment. I don't want to know if you don't like it. If there's anything you think I could improve on, I'm up for constructive criticism. I'm just not really up for criticism. I'm just emotionally not stable enough, to be honest with you. So just keep that to yourself. And yeah, tell me whether you prefer this or whether you prefer the weekly filming. You haven't really got a choice with the weekly filming because I'm going to stop doing it unless I bring some revenue in from it. Which again, you're sort of partly responsible for, because if you're watching this and you haven't hit subscribe, hit it. You know what I mean? Make me some money. Make me some coin. Right. See you on the next one, whenever that is.